Hey everybody, Madeline here to look at the astrology for August 2025. We're going to talk about some major transits that are happening and how that's going to impact each sign. I'm going to go through all the 12 signs and I'm going to pull cards for everybody. So stick around and let's get started. All right. So this is going to be a very interesting month. It begins with a pretty powerful transit, which only happens, every couple of years, but in these two signs, probably 30 years or so. But Mars is going to move into the sign of Libra and oppose Saturn, which is in the sign of Aries. Now, Saturn is debilitated in Aries and Mars is debilitated in Libra. Or let's just say Saturn is, yeah, debilitated in Aries. Uh, Mars is fall in Libra, so it's not, but neither planet is really functioning in their preferred manner of functioning in either of these signs, and they're opposing each other. So, I mean, that's going to be really interesting. So, the cardinals are going to feel it the most because it's going to square or oppose or conjunct. If you have a cardinal at the early degree points, you're going to feel this. So, what's it going to be about? Well, we're going to experience we got Saturn in retrograde where we're clearing up old karmic cycles. And I'm seeing that in my readings. I'm really seeing a lot of people faced with the challenge of trying to not follow their old ways of operating in these certain circumstances so that they can end a pattern, a cycle that you can only end these cycles through changing your reaction to them when they show up again. That's how we change. We change in the experience. So these are showing up right now for a lot of people to make different choices that are counter to what we would normally choose to do. So I mean, that Mars and Libra is coming in. And one of the things we're learning to do right now, because Neptune is in Aries, is to reduce conflict reaction. In other words, to not react to pain and struggles in relationships with conflict, or to not be avoiding conflict so that you're not stepping up in some way to avoid conflict. So it's around finding peace, Mars moving into Libra, finding ways to to create harmony. Now, it can be setting a boundary, it can be expressing something important that needs to be expressed, it can be not reacting in a fighty or conflicting way, or shall we say, aggressive way, and shifting into more empathic ways, no matter what we do. But for some people, it might be setting a boundary or cutting ties, or because we have to. It depends on our own cycle of karma. So this Mars is coming in opposing Saturn. Saturn in the sign, Saturn likes to be in Libra because it likes to have harmony, harmonic relationships, create peace. Mars likes to be in Aries because it likes to initiate and act, take action, and is aggressive, So we've got this sort of conversation going on between how we are going to start operating, clearing our karma in ways that don't create that are either conflict avoidant, that is causing us to create karma for ourselves, or that is not, or is creating conflict out of reaction and non-constructive. So we're going to go through all the 12 signs with that energy that's happening at the beginning of the month. So some people say to me, when does the good stuff happen? When is it going to start? I'm telling you, very, very soon. We're going to have Jupiter and Venus together as well this month on the 12th at 14 degrees of Cancer. That is going to sparkle up our chart in our Cancer houses, which is already looking pretty good by now. I hope you're seeing. Now, a lot of things that happen during these transits, we have eclipses coming up. So a lot of people and a lot of these beginnings, a lot of people don't see the good seed that's being sprouted sometimes. Some of these really good transits are bringing like that new moon in Leo. Maybe people aren't really seeing that yet. Hang in there. Some of these little things that happen around these times are indicators. Remember, these are all aspecting, a lot of these transits are aspecting Saturn. So we're seeing the small seedlings, we're seeing the little sprouts here. So you don't want to put too much expectation on some of these, But if you, when you look at the astrology and the transit that happened at the same time that these things happen, you realize what a big oak tree this is going to become and how exciting and good it is. So that's something to keep your eye on, because while we're going through this karma clearing, by the way, which is not easy, we're resolving and untangling still some karmic ties and knots and ways of operating that are not for our highest good or others. Um, the challenges are still there for that. So that's going to, and some people are more focused on that, which is fine because we are supposed to be more focused on that. But in the background, especially with Neptune there, we're not seeing the whole picture, and there's a lot of good that we're not seeing that's starting to sprout, that's starting to grow. The undercurrent is awesome, really. Now we're going to see that when on the 12th, when Venus and Jupiter conjoin, and they create this like two very powerfully benefic planets that bring us lots of wealth and abundance and love. I mean, basically everything we want. It's the dream come true transit. So we're going to look at that for all the 12 signs. We're going to look at who and how exactly that's going to impact each sign. Then we do have what other major transits to consider? Well, Mercury's going to go direct here on the 11th. Mars is going to make that transit opposite Saturn on the 6th, and it'll last about a week. So basically we've got Mercury going direct on the 11th, that Mars opposite Saturn around the same time as Mercury retrograde. At the same time, the Venus and the Jupiter conjoin. It's going to be a beautiful day around the mid-August. I'm going to share the chart so you can see what I'm talking about, because that middle of the month is going to be incredibly powerful. And look, it forms a amazing kite. I try not to be too, I'm ruled by Jupiter. I'm rising Cancer, which means Jupiter's in my sign. I'm Sagittarius sun and moon Pisces. So I try not to be too Jupiterian and like, well, because, it can be over, what do they call it? Sagittarius can be a little over optimistic, I suppose. So anyway, but you got to admit, that's a beautiful picture right there. This is happening on August 7th. We're going to form this kite on August 6th. As soon as Mars makes that entry into the sign of Libra, we're starting to get this powerful kite. So honestly, this transit, if it does feel difficult, it's a major, beautiful breakthrough and sends us onto this new journey. We break through some sort of by seeking harmony, which might be that we need to find inner peace or outer peace. We need to be more assertive, or we need to be less aggressive. One of these we have to find, depending on our own journey of our karmic clearing, is going to get shifted. We're going to change that. And then it suddenly sort of opens this beautiful flow into our lives, this blessed new beginnings in the Saturn retrograde, where we're really connecting with our internal motive, an internally motivated uh, point. What do you call it? Intrinsic motivated with that Saturn there, with all these kites, everything pointing to that Saturn. So our Saturn houses are going to light up, which is, we're going to go through all the 12 signs on our Saturn houses. And so this is a breakthrough. This is something, so as hard as it may be to go through some of these transits, they are breakthrough transits that Saturn wants us to mature and grow up and become more relationship material, because this is always going to be around relationship axis Libra Aries. So this is about relationships, which impact all aspects of our lives. They don't have to be our marriage or romantic. It's friendships, contracted relationships. We're all here in a group. We're all in some kind of a relationship with multiple different types of relationships with multiple different types of people. So this is going to be some big shift that and most of our karma is going to be created in our relationships and how we're relating. And so with this transit here, we're really going to be looking at that on a deep level, Saturn retrograde, how we create conflict, how we're not, or how we need to not be avoidant. Anyway, I'm going to go into more depth about that later on, because I could talk all day about this transit. All right. So when we look at these transits here, so we're looking at the Mars opposite Saturn transit, which is making a beautiful, I mean, some people are going to hit this hard, but it's a growth point and it's a transformation and it's ending up awesome on the other side. So I think the conflict is resolved in this, or balance is found, in my opinion. And if it has to go through a little bit of conflict to get there and opposition, because usually oppositions, if they hit your chart, you do see an issue show up, that has to be sort of worked through. I'm doing this. We're not going to do it that way this time. We're going to communicate. We're going to open up. We're trying not to be that reactive, aggro, energetic in our relationship contract agreements. Or we have to be more that way. We have to set more boundaries. Because I'm reading with people all different types of ways that they have to step into breaking a pattern here. Um, so, so yeah, so we're looking at that. Okay, so we're starting on the 6th here. We see the Mars and Saturn opposition. And now we're going to move to the next day is the 11th, where Mercury stations direct, right? Well, not the next day, but the next transit. So there's Mercury. We're still in this kite formation. We still have this opposition going on. Mercury is now direct at 4 degrees of Leo, very close to that new moon, by the way. So that's going to initiate that new moon, guys. If you aren't seeing anything, a lot of people did see something, but they wouldn't have considered that it. Sometimes it's somebody contacted you, you got an email that day, or, Anyway, this is going to start going forward. We got a beautiful rectangle, mystic rectangle this day where we're getting downloads and guidance and clarity and that kite. We're all being led here to this intuitive guided to go in that internal intrinsic motivated direction that we know is going to put our passion into for the next 29 years, that we'll be able to sustain an interest in new moon Leo and what inspires us, right? So we're going to get over some sort of blockage that we have to being fully in our power in relationships that creates a cycle of karma. We're going to clear that up, and then that's that transit. Then we're going to go to the 12th, where we have this amazing transit the next day, OMG transit at 14 degrees of Cancer with the opposition and Mercury direct. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the center of this month that we should look at to throw in on this. Oh, the new moon. So let's throw in that new moon, the new moon on the 9th. Oh, sorry, it's a full moon on the 9th. Hello. That is after, oh, we didn't even do that. So let's go back to the 9th. So we've got this full moon in Aquarius. Look at the astrology for that full moon in Aquarius. Mercury is still in retrograde though, but still, I mean, we're going to see a lot in this full moon. We're going to discover the truths. We're going to be liberated. This is a powerful full moon. A lot to talk about on that. So I'll go through that for each of the 12 signs. But basically, we're breaking through and stepping into our sovereign paths in some sort of fearless capacity with a huge amount of universal assistance. This is the time to trust your dreams and go for it. Uranus is that those long-term dreams, those long-term gains and your tribe and I mean that's a fabulous full moon. So that's happening all around the August center. This is going to be a fantastic month. We're going to have a big breakthrough. We're going to step onto some beautiful new path that really inspires us. Most likely, we've broken through layers of karmic baggage that has been holding us down and causing problems in our lives. We're now stepping into being fully more empowered who we are without the sort of mess of relating in relationships in ways that cause us problems, you know. And now we're stepping into our dharmic purpose, why we're here on Earth. If you're alive on this Earth right now, you're part of the New Earth movement, and it's starting in this full moon. I mean, I think this full moon makes it very, very clear what our dharmic purpose and role is in the new Earth, in the transformation of the two eras. And, it is the golden era, but, we have to clear karma to get there. And that's not pretty. Shakespeare says nothing is good or bad. It is only thinking that makes it so. So it is, if you think going through these karmic challenges are hard, that's just what you think, because the universe says, no, 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 no. This is fantastic. You got a clean slate. We're starting over. We know better. We can do things better now. I mean, what a gift. So, okay, I am now going to go through each of the 12 signs. All righty. All right, Sun, Moon, Rising, Aries people, I would suggest listening to the beginning of this video where there is an introduction and I talk a little bit more in depth about the transits I'm about to talk to you about. But your chart is probably being impacted the most out of everybody, as you are going to have your ruling planet in the sign of Libra in your seventh house, opposing your first house, where Saturn is currently in the sign of Aries. So it depends on your own sort of karmic loop because we have Saturn in retrograde. So Saturn in retrograde in your own sign, in your first house, is having you be very, very reflective and contemplative about some of the choices that you've made in the past that caused you to have karmic results, which really means results that you didn't really want. So you're reflecting, and it really is centered on your communication and clarity, there's clarity coming in for you about these brand new beginnings. So you're really finding clarity before you're about to initiate some very serious, big commitment, 29-year cycle level type commitment. So you're maturing a lot. There's some sort of maturation occurring with this Saturn retrograde in your first house. And then with Mars opposite in your seventh house in Libra, you're definitely learning to create relationships and contract agreement. Now, it can be marriages, it can be partnerships, it can be work agreements, it can be any type of relationship that you're learning how to find a way to conflict resolve and how to be more balanced and diplomatic and how to create better contracted relationships that are more even. Now, of course, it depends on other things in your chart. Some people have to set more boundaries. Some people have to not be afraid of conflict in their contracted relationships. But this transit is helping you develop and change a pattern that you create that creates karma for you. And so this transit can either be hard or easy depending on how you respond. It can either have you trigger and you blow your lid, because Libra Mars is not the most strong Mars. It does tend to not tend can lose its temper, so there can definitely be conflicts for you in relationships showing up. But with Saturn in retrograde, helping you mature and helping you understand something about something inside you that causes these conflicts or that is, shall we say, an emotional trigger. And so you're finding a deep truth in all of this before we start this big new chapter about what it is that causes you to create patterns and results that you don't like. So there's a lot of reflection going on around that. Let me go ahead and pop the chart for Aries. So we also have Neptune there and we have Chiron in your first house. So basically, you're going to be going through a lot of healing and internal, all these planets are retrograde. You guys are the most reflective and contemplative right now. And really understanding a depth of some sort of soul wounding that is causing you to have conflicts in your relationships with Venus square, all relationships, perhaps stemming with mother, but there's some modus of operandum that is going to shift because you're seeing very clearly through the fog, through the chaos of your life that we the wake of our life, that you're looking back at it and seeing how it was caused by an internal wounding, stemming most likely from mother, that plays out in your relationships. Again, these can be contracted relationships of any sort, lawyers, um, what else, like marriage partnerships, friendships, um, the list goes on. So, so the beginning of the month starts out with a big push for Aries to change about something big and to commit to something big, but they're deep contemplation before this commitment comes in. And then with that Mercury, in other words, there's this Mercury is also in retrograde, don't forget, making kind of a trine angle to the first house. So there's a lot of reflection on friends of the past or connections in the past, what were not good for us or good for the Aries, and basically, or connections or creative projects or attempts or things that didn't sort of work out. And so there's this reflective energy on how to change that. And then Mercury is going to go direct here when it is on the when does Mercury go direct? Mercury is going to go direct on the 11th. Well, let's go in order here because we're going to have that new full moon. Okay, well, let's go to Mercury direct. So Mercury is going to go direct at the same degree of that new moon in Leo that we just had. So when that, so when Mercury goes direct here, where here we go, Mercury direct, it's very close to that new moon. So we're really seeing some sort of clarity about a creative project that wants to be initiated here, go much more forward as a result of some sort of deep reflection about how Aries operate in partnership agreements. Or it can just be knowing what you really desire and connecting with the relationships that you really feel in alignment that you find you can create peace and harmony with. So there's many ways this can play out. So of course, you're welcome to have a person ask me for a personal reading if you would like to see how this impacts your own personal chart. But the cards that I'm getting around this transit for Cancer is, I mean, sorry, for Aries is a big and see it stems in low self-esteem. Some of these ways of operating in Aries is coming stemming from a not valuing yourself, that Leo new moon. That's over. I think Aries are learning in this contemplative period, this hermit cards, there's an understanding of surrendering some sort of struggle and pulling away from negative situations rather than staying in them and struggling. So that's the Mars Libra act transit that's happening in the first week. But also we have, and then we did mention the Mercury going direct in your 11th house. Oh, sorry, actually, Mercury is going to go direct in your fifth house, which is going to bring forward a creative project. It connected to that new moon in Leo that we had at the end of July. Venus is going to be in Leo for most of the month. That would be in your, again, your fifth house. So very, I'm sorry, take that back. Venus is in Cancer most of the month. So that is in your fourth house. So there could be some sort of opportunities, and we're going to have Jupiter and Venus meet there in your fourth house. So we've got some really good luck thing happening in your fourth house there. Some either you're selling a property or real estate, or you could get married and have children. If you're already married, you could get a lot of money and a good offer on a piece of real estate that you want to sell that really liberates you financially. I mean, this really couldn't be a more positive transit, probably one of the most positive transits we're going to have all year. And so some sort of good luck situation happens around your property finances, or let's say because Saturn rules your 10th house of career, that you get a permit approved to build a house that you truly desire, or you because there's going to be some sort of government stuff happening as Saturn rules your 10th. So you may be going back and redrawing some sort of contract or dealing with contracts or applying for permits. If you're going to build something, that fourth house connection there, Venus there, you want to add an addition to your house. So it would really upgrade the value of your property if you did that. But this is a very, very auspicious and abundant transit. Also, it could be that you're starting a new family because Saturn in your first house with Mars in your seventh, where you're really initiating you're initiating a new relationship because you've learned how to conflict resolve and you've ended karmic relationships. So now you're ready for a more committed relationship. So you're really motivated to activate a more harmonious approach in dealing with your personal relationships and working through any conflict resolutions. You're resolving conflict. So if conflicts show up, you're going to be resolving them. But these beautiful expansions are happening in your fourth house. I know I should keep this to 0 degree Aries because I'm popping around here. Um, but so yeah, so there we go. There's that new moon in your fifth and Mercury going direct. There's Mars in your seventh house opposing Saturn in your first, where you could discover conflicts could show up, but also a beautiful kite is forming, and we're having very close to this Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So something gets worked through here that could turn into a very committed, beneficial, beautiful opportunity of abundance and growth through the fourth house or through having family, property, real estate. But other things are happening in your chart, so there could be other things happening too. Also, with Saturn ruling your 10th house in retrograde, a creative project or a project that you really desire that didn't work out before because you had karma still to clear to become your fully empowered version of yourself that could handle relationships more without conflict. as much. Um, you now are able to start some sort of new venture in your career here, a big new beginning initiates with that you're really having to step up to the plate and become more responsible about, more mature about. And so this growth in relationships then enables you to step up to some sort of big project or big dream type career move and new beginning because Saturn is at 1 degree. So we're initiating a new beginning in your career that comes from you becoming more mature, more reflective about who you are and changing some of the ways that you operate in relationships and really seeing that pattern and ending it. And then you're really ready to initiate some beautiful new projects, creative ventures with friends and other collaborative people, and perhaps a new relationship if you're single, that really you've learned how to end a karmic cycle. And now you can step into this new positive beginning and this new chapter. And so then we're going to move to um, the transits of what else did we going to talk about? So we've got Mercury going direct. We talked about that. Venus in your fourth house, bringing you lots of good luck with Jupiter there in your fourth house, family, real estate, property. And then let's talk about the moons. So, well, we can talk about the North Node being in your 12th house, which is really going to perhaps involve travel or out in the country or just more spiritual, contemplative, seeking understandings of higher concepts and the unseen realm, and seeking spiritual truths, perhaps, or traveling. But the new moons, we're going to have a full moon, a beautiful full moon on the 9th, which is right near this big transit of Venus and Jupiter, and also really close to to Mercury going direct. So this is really a period where we're going to see movement going forward with this full moon in your 11th house. Now that's happening on the 9th. There it is, the full moon, and it's going to be at 16 degrees of 16 degrees there. I guess it depends on where you are, but California, it will be at the 8th, but 16 degrees of Aquarius in your 11th house. I mean, some sort of dream come true because it's happening at this kite, this beautiful kite. It's even three angles. We got 1, 2, and 3. I mean, that's amazing. This is an amazing full moon. So we're really looking at some beautiful, big, liberating new venture that takes you into the age of Aquarius, that makes you a part of the new movement, your leaders, Aries. And this full moon really brings a big dream come true involving a collaborative venture, humanitarian venture, perhaps a joint involving other people of your tribe, social media, networking type projects that are very high visibility. Um, Perhaps you have clarity on a project you want to bring onto the social media, into the awareness of the world. But with this kite, you're part of the leader of it. It points to your first house. You're stepping into leadership and showing up very bold and strong in your area of expertise. Let's put it that way also. And then we have the new moon in Virgo. We're going to have the eclipses in Virgo. So this is your sixth house. So this big new project that opens up on the full moon there on the 9th creates a whole new beginning in your day-to-day routine. Your day-to-day life completely changes, and you will see that your life is beginning on a new trajectory, which is way more healthy, way more disciplined. You're going to be working very hard with that Saturn in retrograde in your first house, but your health is now becoming a priority, and your day-to-day routine, and reshaping your day so that you can do this because you're going to restructure your life around this new beginning. So your whole life basically is changing. That's probably the simplest way to put it. So, good month ahead for Aries. Hang in there through that first week with that Mars Saturn conjunction. You're just going to clear up some old ways of operating that are going to line you up better for your new destiny. So, I hope this is helpful for you. Thank you for watching, Aries. Hey, Taurus, Sun, Moon, Rising. I suggest you watch the beginning of the video where I go into more details about these transits. But I'm going to go ahead and share the chart and show you how these transits for the month of August 2025 are playing out for you. And the month starts out with a very powerful transit of Saturn opposing Mars. I go into more detail about this at the beginning of the video, but you're going to be feeling this transit in your 12th house because that's where Saturn is for you, where you're going and doing some deep digging, especially within retrograde, some subconscious causes of your karmic patterns and your karmic cycles. Now, everybody's going through a version of this, but when it's in your 12th house, it's almost more depth, more serious, more going to the root of the problem, digging in and finding out what it is that causes you to have problems and conflicts in relationships. Now, when Mars moves into the sixth house, opposes Saturn there on the sixth, it really starts, you're going to feel it at the beginning of the month because it's moving into that position as the month begins. So you're going to be feeling this deep karmic understanding of the patterns that cause you to have enemies, hidden enemies, or how you turn your relationships into enemy situations. Not that saying you're turning them, but how they seem to turn into these situations. But what you're doing is you're doing some deep reflection on what causes this. Now, Saturn rules your ninth house, so it's going to stem in some sort of spiritual belief, conflicts of beliefs. So you're really having this deep karmic introspective period where you're really with Neptune there and Chiron there, digging deep and finding some sort of source of problems that cause you repeat lack of peace in your connections. And this is going to bring you in, this is going to really be a blessing because we've got this beautiful kite causing these incredible benefic energies of flow and grace and ease. So this, as you're doing this inner reflection on some deep woundings, past life karmic subconscious woundings that are causing you to sabotage your life, you're doing this deep reflecting and you're finding a spiritual alternative. You're going into some sort of higher consciousness awareness that you're shifting into, which is going to become more of your day to day. I think you realize you want a spiritual practice that helps you discover inner peace because it seems like for Taurans, you're ruled by Venus. You want peace. You're a peaceful person. Cows are, but the bull is predominantly peaceful unless he's threatened. So, so you're seeking to understand how it is that you feel threatened in these situations. What's going on? What's a wounding inside you that causes you to feel threatened, which causes you to react? So now we're finding some sort of higher consciousness awareness and and a different way of operating on a day to day causes you more inner peace. And you're learning how not to react because Saturn is teaching us in retrograde, wants us to be disciplined, detached, and non reactive. So this is a big growth period where you're really maturing because Saturn is going to go into your first house in 2.5 years, where again, there's some big growth occurring for you. But in the meantime, you have to clear out the subconscious causes that are hard to see because of Neptune being there, and it's got a spiritual source being Neptune there, where you're going to shift and become more empathic through some higher awareness from that ninth house. You become awakened to a spiritual source, a spiritual solution. So now we then go forward into this month, into that new moon in, sorry, is it a full moon? Sorry, full moon in Aquarius at 16 degrees in your 10th house of career. Again, this is a Saturn ruled house, and it implies that, and we have a beautiful sextile here from Saturn to your Pluto, which shows that you're breaking with this karmic clearing of subconscious, unaware fears that are really debilitating you and causing you to sort of be self-sabotage. You have a breakthrough and you see very clearly some beautiful new future, the very important humanitarian career move that's coming and opening up for you now, where you have this confidence to step forward and create more dynamic relationships because you have this sort of grounded center in spirituality. So you feel more confident about stepping forward out into the community as perhaps a leader. You get a job promotion, something boosts your confidence that puts you very strong into these, because you have the North Node in your 11th house, into the community and into a prominent, perhaps leadership role to initiate some sort of project that takes you in, that takes the world forward into this new earth. And we had that new moon in Leo. Now Mercury's going to go retrograde here too, on the 11th. So after this full moon, we've got Mercury retrograde going direct here, opposite that 10th house, which would indicate a new family living situation, a new home. If you're happy and stable where you are, perhaps you change something in your new beginning or a project that you're going to work from home, or you a new opportunity, a new family opens up, a new living situation, a new idea about your property, real estate. You want to change, a new creative, you want to redesign it, or you want to take a creative project that you initiate. It doesn't have to necessarily be related to home, but it could just be a creative project with family, perhaps a family collaborative, or with a creative. You could get pregnant and have a child, very possible. But then Mercury's going to go direct here on that 11th, around that full moon, where things go forward. Things are really going forward for you. And then we come up to this incredible energy of the Venus, your ruling planet, conjoining. Here we go, Venus and Jupiter conjoining. We're going to have to lose. Oh, there we go. We're still in Taurus. Very good. In your third house. So if this is good news, really good news, of some sort, hearing from a past love, if you are not, if you're single, or if you're in a relationship, you hear exciting news. Perhaps you can travel, or you somehow you, because the Jupiter there is expanding things. So you and this is very soul contract. Perhaps you and your design and your divine mate, or your significant other, take on this new project, a new. Perhaps you decide to travel together and start an Instagram feed on your travels, or you start a business and you get this really lucrative offer. Um, you could do very well on a website. You suddenly start selling something, making a lot of money. Venus, Jupiter can make you a lot of money, get you more recognition. It's the house of commerce, so there's good flow of in and out finances, like selling something, receiving income from something, or also this is your business, your people that are around you on a day to day. You could meet a divine mate if you're single, in your local environment around people that you know. Um, so that's looks great for Taurans. With that, it does it that new moon in Leo does oppose the nodes in your 11th house, which is where you're sort of becoming more and more visible in the community and more known in connection to your Dharma, because Pisces is very much a Jupiter ruled energy, and it puts you on a very dharmic path that you desire. So this is sort of an inspired creative new path, because that Saturn in retrograde in your 12th house, you're really dissolving lower density fear-based energies that have sort of been dragging you down here, and now are being freed and lifted away out of. So let's go ahead. We've looked at that full moon in your 10th house of career. That's again a promotional situation, or becoming more recognized and seen in some way. That you step forward to take on some sort of humanitarian. Now, that can be in many things. It can be just you being an artist and expressing, because Venus ruled people are very creative, very artistic. So it could just be that you have the confidence to take your art forward out into the world and have it be seen. So the other thing we then have is this new moon Virgo in your 5th house, which could be a new relationship, a new pregnancy. It could be a new creative venture, the rebirth. Now with that Mercury direct in your fourth, connected to that new moon, by the way, that new moon Leo, anything that sort of was initiated around that new moon Leo will show up and start going forward more and become more visible in your life. And that new moon in your 5th house is very connected to that. So this is like a new, more healthy relationship, um, connected to your dharma, soul contract adventures. If you're already in a relationship and you're already both, aligned up to your callings and purpose, it could be a new beginning in a creative project, or you could have a grandchild. A lot of ways this can play out. Again, if you want a personal reading to see exactly how it plays out, do feel free to contact me. Um, I would say that this looks a really nice month. Now that that Saturn Mars opposition in Libra, by the way, I do forget that Libra is your sign too. So you may feel this challenge where you do have to really make a strong, concerted effort to shift your reaction to something and really not lose it, because Mars Libra can lose it. So we're really being tested with that Mars Libra big time. So I think that's covering all the bases here. Thank you for watching, and namaste. Gemini, Sun, Moon, Rising. August is going to be a fabulous month for you because your ruling planet stations direct in a very fun energy in the sign of Leo. And it is related to the new moon that we just had in Leo, which, let's go ahead and pop the chart. Also, I would suggest you watch the beginning of this video, the introduction, where I go into more depth about these transits. But here you go, Leo direct, Mercury direct, your ruling planet in the third house, which is a Gemini house, which is the house of commerce, it's the house of communication, information, media, selling. So something goes forward related to that new moon because Mercury is going to go direct at the same degree of that new moon. So that new moon may have brought you some news or information or knowledge of something, but maybe it was very small and maybe seemed insignificant. Well, now that Mercury is stationing direct at that same point, you're going to see it grow into something more. Perhaps you heard communication from somebody from your past and it didn't seem significant. Well, now that Mercury is direct, the lines completely open up. So for Gemini that are single, Jupiter and Venus are going to meet this month and make an incredible connection in your second house, involving resources and finances and creative ventures. Again, it could be making or running a small business, but there is a soul collaborative contract adventure because Jupiter rules your seventh house. And you have Uranus in your first house, so anything can happen at any time that really changes your life for the next 18 years. Your life will be, the life that you see now will be completely different in 8 years. Different relationship, maybe different living situation, different career. I've seen this really change people's lives in ways you had no idea. You can't even imagine. So the month, the Mercury is going to station direct your ruling planet on the 11th, which is very close to that full moon, which is on the 9th in Leo. I'm sorry, the full moon is in your ninth house, which will bring some perhaps opportunities to travel or the knowledge or the clarity. Full moons bring revelations, some sort of spiritual awakening, perhaps connected to this new moon, some sort of realization that something is very spiritual. Perhaps if it's a relationship that you realize you have an awakening and you realize, wow, this is a spiritual connection. But this full moon in the ninth house also wakes you up to a humanitarian dharmic destined purpose that's calling you, that you may be seeing very clearly, that you join forces with. Now, seventh house transits, Jupiter ruling your seventh house, does not have to be a marriage, romantic partnership. It can be a work collaborative venture. So, creative project or creative business. So, and plus you've got Saturn in retrograde in your 11th house. We're going to talk about that transit in a minute, which is how the month begins. I'm kind of jumping around because of your ruling planet being Mercury. Of course, I'm jumping around, right? Um, so get back to where we're going here. So this full moon in your ninth house brings you a big spiritual awakening where you have some big realization about your dharmic purpose, your calling, and who your true divine person is. If you're in a connected relationship and you're already with your true connected divine true relationship, then you either decide to travel together or take on a joint collaborative dharmic calling, soul contracted, connected to all these other houses. So also communication is just going to open up in general. Wow, my my throat chakra feels kind of blocked. So really we're opening up the floodgates of communication here as well. Um, for it depends on your personal chart, how this karmic thing is playing out, because the beginning of the month starts out with with Mars going into the sign of Libra, and I go into more explanation about this at the beginning of the video. But we're having, and Saturn is in retrograde next to Neptune with Chiron up there, where we're really healing some sort of, it's in your 11th house, so there's some sort of perception or some sort of karmic loop that happens in the life of Gemini, where they're very create karma. You have Saturn over your eighth and your ninth. So some sort of blockage or some sort of karmic loop happens in your life where you're associating or trying to impress people or trying to look good or trying to appear more than what you are, I suppose. I mean, we all do this on a certain level. So in a way that puts you in contact or connections with people that are not necessarily in alignment with your highest good, that are not necessarily in the same belief as it were. Maybe you wake up to realizing that you are in you want to shift tribe to someone that's more connected to sort of an awakening that you're seeing, and you want to join um, collaboratives in humanitarian effort involved with some sort of spiritual awakening, like you want to join forces because you're what you're but what you're doing is you have this inner reflection going on about who your true tribe are and how you distort who you are to fit in a tribe or a group. And then with that Mars in Libra in your fifth house, you could be resolving conflicts with people or finding peace because you're changing um, a karmic pattern here. So you're probably going to either discover new friendships in this new moon in Leo, could very well be new relations, new people in your everyday environment, and you want to group up with them because they share more of your belief. So there's a shift going on in your relationships and friendships where you're ending a karmic pattern of making friends with people that don't really align with your beliefs. And so you're making new friends that you find more peace, that you can have peace with because they're more aligned with your calling and what you're here to do. So you're aligning everything to the Saturn. You're making the right friends that believe in the same, align with your beliefs or your endeavors or support your endeavors in this purpose that you're on now to help heal the collective, because that Aquarius is about the collective. And so then you've got, your ruling planet going direct around that full moon. So this clarity that comes in on this full moon really pulls things forward for you, moves things along quite well. And there's a creative inspiration about it, passion involved too, if it's a relationship coming in from the past. Um, Now, Venus, Jupiter in your second house could be a financial windfall, or you discover a way of earning money that can really boost your income. And it most likely involves a divine or a partnership agreement, being Venus. So that is like a dream come true in your finances. And, with the Saturn and Mars in your fifth house, the theme for you is spreading passion through art, flirtation, creative projects, and enthusiasm grows. So this is a period where you become very inspired on some sort of creative project, enthusiasm. And this enthusiasm, it could be around selling something or precious objects, or you suddenly wake up to seeing your value, that you're really worthy of a divine love or more income or hiring your price, raising your prices, or a different way of income that's really inspiring, that's in the arts, that's creative, that puts you in alignment with your true destined calling. Um, so a lot of good stuff looking there for you, Gemini. The only challenge would be this Mars, Saturn conflicting opposition. Now I always forget that we have the Mercury, Pluto, but we are facing our fears. We experience that on the new moon. So whatever triggers show up around this direct motion of Mercury we're breaking through these fears with this kind of a configuration. We're breaking through the fears that are stopping us from going forward on this new mission that's going to last 29-year cycle and clearing the karma that caused us to block that bold initiative that we're taking right now. Everybody is, but for you, Gemini, it's involving your 11th house, which is very much a humanitarian new project that puts you much more out into the community. So in that vein, you have to transform what you think, how you're trying to control what people think of you. Because Saturn there in retrograde, you're creating karma in your 11th house. So we're clearing that. It's based on a fear because Saturn rules your 8th house, a subconscious fear that makes you, in a way, feel like you have to be bigger or better than you are. And now you're actually really aligning into some sort of project that literally does make you bigger and better and make you more prominent in the community. Kind of hero energy, that Aries energy. Then last but not least, we have that new moon in your fourth house where you're going to initiate a new living environment, a new family, a new healthy routine in your home living environment, or living in a new home that creates a better routine for you, or you move and that new life completely changes your daily routine. But you're really aligning to a dharmic path, and so it very well involves relocating. What else with that Virgo in the fourth? New moon, new health. We talked about that. New service-oriented projects. So on the whole, this month looks fantastic for Gemini. Watch out for this opposition. Try not to lose your cool. Instead, you want to try to harmonize and collaborate. Now, if you're conflict avoidant, speak up. Let the people fall away that need to, and go forward with those that are part of your true tribe. And I would say that this is a very blessed month for Gemini on the whole. So have a wonderful month. Thank you for watching. Cancer. I recommend watching the beginning of the video where I go into more depth about these transits that are happening in August. And I will also pull cards for you. I forgot to pull cards for Taurus and Gemini, but I will write some cards, pull some cards for them in the description. So let's take a look at Cancer. You guys are going to have a really fabulous month because Jupiter is in your sign. So if you're a Cancer sun, Jupiter will be on your sun, which will be really awesome. You'll have a really, shall we say, you'll shine and radiate in the world. Your image will become more seen. And of course, it depends what your rising sign is the most. If it is in your rising sign, then you're going to feel a lot of confidence and ability to initiate 10 of Pentacles. Sorry, 10 of Pentacles. You'll feel an ability to really initiate some powerful big new beginnings. So we're going to go ahead and pull the chart and look at all of these transits that are happening this month. But the big one is Venus and Jupiter are going to be in your first house. So something really fabulous is going to happen for Cancer rising. And I see the 10 of Pentacles, 2 of Wands, 5 of Pentacles, King of Swords. So it looks to me that opportunities are coming in for Cancer that really shift them into a higher position financially. And that's really, really great news. We get that Leo, we're going to have Mercury stationing direct in Leo, which is in your second house. So there is some sort of beginning that you maybe couldn't really see when because Mercury was in retrograde during the Leo new moon at the end of last month. So perhaps you couldn't really see what this new birth is, but now that Mercury is going to go direct, you're going to see it sprout more. So let's go ahead and share the chart for you, Cancer. Let's go ahead and put Cancer on the ascendant here. So the beginning of the month does start with a challenge. We're going to have you're going to feel this because it's going to square your ascendant and your seventh house. We basically are having Mars shift into the Libra energy, and then Saturn is in your, sorry, other way around. Saturn is in your 10th, and the Mars and Saturn opposition, which I speak about at the beginning of the video, so I recommend you go back and check it out, is going to be opposing your 4th and your 10th. So we're going to see some sort of now all we're all clearing karma with this Saturn, and it's squaring your ascendant. So this clearing of karma that's happening for Cancer rising is literally changing who you are. Anyway, there is Venus at the beginning of the month in Cancer, squaring Saturn, causing you to really shift some major karma around relationships and really take on contrary action. It's tough, but it's facing yourself so that you can really change your patterns here. And but it's extremely benefic when this, as Venus continues for the next couple months. I don't know, when does Venus go into not this month. Venus will stay in your Cancer first house for the entire month. So you'll look good, you'll feel great about yourself. And then perhaps, with Saturn ruling your seventh house, we could see a relationship coming in that is highly, long term, because anything that begins right now with this connection to Saturn is long term. So when that's Mars, I'm kind of jumping around because you're cardinals. So it's like, so there's that Mercury retrograde in your second, but let's start from what happens. So Mars is going to go into the Libra opposition to Saturn on the 6th, where you could find yourself in conflict, or really, because it's going to create a grand cross in your chart, like a big grand square, where you really do feel the pressure to change something big about you. And also, I go at the beginning what this transit is about. I mean, it could be that you need to not be conflict avoidant, and it could be that you need to not be aggressive in some way, depending on what your personal chart looks like. If you have a lot of if you have a fiery Mars, it's possible you have to learn to be more mellow and passive. In these change, that's going to be and I don't mean passive as in ineffective or not taking care of things. I mean to be less active, less yang in your situations, and be a little bit more peacekeeper, more yin, Venus, peacekeeper, that's what's happening here in this astrology, as we're changing our karma around relationships, because the Libra Aries axis is about relationships. So we're changing our way of operating that is not empathic or not self-loving. So Cancers are going to step into a radical self-love and become this, in my opinion, is Cancer in their strength, because Jupiter's there. So I would say Cancers are feeling pretty good about themselves. So I would think that they have what do you call it? The dignity, the more superior position, let's say, because this is to the right. So, but we're clearing a pattern of perhaps being victimy in relationships, because Cancers always work very hard, Capricorn, over their seventh in relationships. But anyway, Saturn ruling your seventh house, there's a good chance these changes are occurring in time for you to initiate some big 29-year cycle in your life that could involve marriage or a recommitment. If you're already married, a big project, a co-collaborative with a partnership, can be a friend partnership or a business partnership. So yeah, I'm kind of jumping around for Cancer, but I guess that's the way it's going to be today. Venus is going to move into Leo at the end of the month, joining in that second house. Good, valuable possessions increase, but we won't go there right now. That's at the end of the month. But Mars going into Libra goes on the 6th, and then we have that new moon. We have a full moon in Aquarius on the 9th in your 8th house. So there could be the full moon looks really great, actually, when I look at it aside, but it could hit you in a way that triggers you with that, let's go to that day. Let's see if I can keep it. So the full moon happens on the 9th. So when we go to the 9th, see, this full moon is happening on the 9th around the same time Mercury goes direct. Mercury goes direct on the 11th. Around the same time Mars goes into Libra, which is around the 6th. So this is like a big shift. Suddenly a lot of things happen. And things are like, because these cardinal energies are the initiator. When Mars goes into that opposition to Saturn, we're in cardinal energies, which is initiating energies, new initiations, new beginnings. And Mars in Libra is a whole story to talk about, which I'll talk about at another time, but more I do talk about at the beginning, I think. So we've got the 8-8 is Mars Saturn opposition exact. So this is that whole for I would say in on the middle of the first week or towards the end of the first week, that second week of August is where all these huge things are happening. We've got the Venus Jupiter conjunction, which is really going to bless your first house. We've got that Mars Saturn opposition, which makes a beautiful kite. We do have we have Mercury at that point of the new moon. So this new beginning comes in. That's why I got the Leo card. We didn't see it during the time of Leo, but it is happening here. And then I do see the Virgo new moon card. So we've got a Virgo new moon after that, which I'll talk about in a minute. But this Leo, something is going to start to really show up like in the material realm, especially on that new moon there in Virgo. So we're going to start seeing a lot of what has been behind the scenes. And you're going to start seeing your because you're cardinal, and these planets are hitting the cardinal points, your cardinal cusps. So you're going to start seeing in this month the real tangible shift in your life that you've been sensing for a while. Cancers are very sensitive. So the other thing I guess we're going to talk about, we talked about that the full moon in your eighth house may trigger some fears around finances, but because we have Mercury opposite Pluto there, you may discover a secret that triggers you, that's upsetting. It could be about your finances, could be about taxes. But the fear that it triggers is not real. Things are flowing so powerfully in so many other directions that it's that you're really just purging and letting go of some sort of fear-based, every time every sign gets a full moon or a new moon in their eighth house where they have to illuminate their fear-based attachments. And that progresses you into the next step, which is spiritual. So it's all part of the journey. It's part of the growth. So that full moon, it could also bring a big joint resources with a partner on a collaborative humanitarian effort. You could get funding for something. I mean, there's a lot of good things also that can come with a full moon in your eighth house where you could have a sudden windfall of some sort. You suddenly, with some of the other transits, it wouldn't surprise me for Cancer at all. With that Venus and Jupiter together, I'm going to go for things being pretty darn good, really. Although I don't love the Mercury retrograde, Pluto retrograde opposition, but there is some truth that needs to be revealed, or there is some healing still that needs to be done. And don't forget, we've got Chiron retrograde. So we are going back and clearing out some issues around valuing of ourselves and not feeling good enough for this new beginning here. And some sort of deep secret perhaps shows you that you are good enough. You had an illusion that you weren't. You had a fear-based attachment to someone seeing that you weren't. Anyway, that's how August looks for you. Oh yeah, the new moon is on the 23rd, and that is happening at 0 degrees of Virgo. And that makes a very favorable aspect and angle to the cardinal houses. It's trines and sextiles. Sextiles your first house, and trines your seventh house. So this is the initiation of some sort of practical new project. Could be a writing project, could be a health beginning. It depends if you have planets in your sixth house. You're here to be a part of the purifying of our health and healing the health body. So there could be some sort of a media project involving health and informing people or selling things. Third house new moon is business as well as commerce, but could be a media project. Again, it just depends so much on your full chart that, but with that north node in your ninth house, you could be teaching, you could be informing, because that third house is the micro. You could be doing some kind of a new podcast or new writing or Instagram feed that tells everybody more spiritual guidance or knowledge of the spiritual higher realm with that ninth house there, with the north node in your ninth house. So one more card for Cancer. Let's pull one more card for Cancer. It looks like a great month for you. that opposition of Saturn Mars, there could involve moving when Mars is in your fourth, you take a lot of action and initiative to change your living situation, or you get into a relationship if you're single. And if you are married, you and your husband decide to move and take more proactive measures to find other properties or another place to live. See, look, Ten of Cups comes out, a better place to live. The Fool comes out, brand new beginnings. Aries energy. Looks pretty good, 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 good. For Cancer, I see nothing to be concerned about. You're just going to learn with that Mars and Libra, you're going to learn to not have conflicts in relationships, or to not be conflict avoidant, but to be mature, Saturn in Aries, about not being sort of hot-headed and rushing into defensive mode, perhaps even. So this is something that you're hopefully exploring in your life with the Saturn in retrograde, and you're reflecting on what sort of patterns you're going to start shifting in your relationship connections that's going to impact your career, because this is something your soul wants to learn to do, because it then takes you forward in your 10th house in your career in this beautiful new beginning. And Chiron there is healing your insecurities. So um, you know, this is time for Cancers to step up, step out, and be who you're here to be. All right. Thanks for watching.